Happy Monday, Matt.
Happy Monday. We're here again. How's it going?
Yeah, TGIM. Doing good, doing good. Just enjoying the insane heat wave we have. It's been really hot. But other than
Yeah,
that,
it's supposed to get up to 102 today, right? In Salt Lake.
something like that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Let's
But
try to
welcome to
stay out of it
summer.
if possible. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think one thing we wanted to touch on this week is I guess we finished teaching our class at the U recently, and we got a number of students asking about career advice. How should
Yeah.
maybe a person new to data go about finding work, especially in an economy like this, where the prospects aren't as good as they were back even in February. So
Right. Right.
figured we'd touch on maybe some of our advice that we tend to give people for who are maybe newer to the field and looking for work. So
And I think your point earlier too is that most of this advice is probably relevant to anyone in the near future, depending on how the economy goes. I mean, maybe things will turn around really fast, and there will be very low tech unemployment, but things could change too. I mean, we all want to be prepared for those possibilities, especially in a time of a lot of uncertainty.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, data is a particularly interesting one because it seemed like when the pandemic, hit the job market pretty hard, the word on the street was a lot of data science jobs were being cut, and I think you're starting to see that played out in some of the stats. I think that what was it, like data science job postings are down like 41% year over year, and I don't know the exact numbers, how it splits out data science versus IT, but there was like 134,000 information technology jobs that were cut in July alone, and I'm not sure how many of those are data science, but I mean you look at a lot of the jobs that are being cut anecdotally in it, and it's a different environment, especially when data science was like the sexiest job of the 21st century, and there's everyone is getting into the career field now. It's a bit of a different world.
Well,
So
the big challenge too is if you're in kind of a shiny object job, then you become maybe a bit of a luxury. Like companies looking at their bottom line, see they have these really expensive employees, and even if there's value there, if they're just focused on the short term in terms of revenue, cash flow, and such, there's maybe an impulse to just cut those jobs because you can immediately get a lot of money back that way.
sure, sure. It
Yeah.
definitely seemed like a lot of the hires that we had seen were, I think, for newer data teams or companies that were just establishing a data science team, and so it was the time to value may not have been proven out, in time for the pandemic when that hit.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, a lot of these businesses really can benefit from investing more in their data pipelines and data transformation and such because they really need insights into how to pivot their business as they're adjusting to the things that are going on in this very uncertain economy. At the same time, that only works if you have faith in the ability of those teams to deliver value to your business. And so if you don't have good communications between your data teams and your business, then the impulse might be like, well, I'm not going to see the value here. This is not going to work out too well. So let's just cut now and then we'll focus on the long term later.
Yeah, which again presents a challenge for people who are new to the field. It's the classic paradox
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
we hear from quite a few people asking for advice. Well, how do I get a job that requires experience when I have no experience? And so this is always been the classic catch-22 for
Right.
especially for students coming out of school, right? How do I get experience without a job, and how do I get a job without experience? It's, but I think we'll maybe touch on a few things that as we said earlier,
Yeah.
the career advice is something that you definitely that we'll give is definitely something that I think kind of transcends, whether or not you're early in your career or in the middle or even the end of your career. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
what are some of your thoughts? What's some of your advice you'd give people who are new to the getting started in data, really want to find some work, and how would they go about that?
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons we taught the class was that we saw in some cases students were coming out of school with a lot of good abstract skills. Like they knew a lot about the theory of business analytics, but they didn't really have great SQL skills, for example. So they had ideas about how you might analyze data, but they didn't have a lot of the experience of day in, day out, just hacking through SQL and working with data in a database. So getting those really concrete skills is extremely useful. But then, as we were discussing earlier as well, there's kind of the social proof aspect, right? So we like to talk about social proof in marketing. In other words, people will buy things that other people buy. People will buy Android phones if they see other people who like their Android phones. And I think the same applies to the job market, right? You have to somehow get your name out there, even though you don't have a lot of experience in the field, and let people see that you have skills and that you're going to be able to contribute something to their business. So they're even going to give you an interview, let alone a job.
Yeah, for sure. I would say like the things that you should be doing in, early in your career, middle of your career, late in your career, basically your entire career. Build your brand, right? Learn to market yourself. These are, it sounds maybe a bit unsavory to some people, but welcome to the real world. The real world recognizes people that are recognizable.
Exactly.
If nobody knows who you are, why are they going to care? I mean, it reminds me, of the common story I see, or a common situation I see, where somebody's been in a job for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, hasn't made an effort to build a name for themselves, even within their company, let alone outside the company. And so when something happens to that company, and inevitably something will happen to a company, you'll get bought, you'll go out of business, or something, or you'll just get different management changes. This always happens. The situation is going to change. And if nobody knows who you are, nobody cares. And it kind of doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, if something affects your job, now you're out there on the street with hundreds, thousands, millions of other people, all competing for, a limited number of spots at whatever new company you're looking at. And if you haven't put in the time to build a name for yourself, you're starting from scratch. And the worst time to look for a job is when you need one.
Exactly, especially if everyone else is looking for jobs at the same time. It's one thing if your company is struggling during a really good economy and you get laid off and then you just kind of jump to the next job. You're probably getting calls from recruiters every week anyway. Yeah, right now, I think what we're seeing with a lot of businesses is many businesses are doing quite well right now. Any company that's involved in the online retail sector has seen a big bump in their business because people aren't hitting brick and mortar stores as much. But those companies are still really uncertain, right? They're very reluctant to hire new talent because they don't know what's around the corner economically. And so it's a tough time to be building your brand. But that means that if you are in a good job position, don't get complacent. Start getting out there and communicating so that if something changes unexpected, you'll be prepared for that change and you'll be kind of at the top of the list when a company is looking for talent.
For sure. And maybe some of the things that we can touch on for communication, it's like LinkedIn. It's a fantastic network of professionals. I would highly recommend people build their network on LinkedIn. Post thoughtful posts about data or otherwise. I hate to use the word authentic, it's overused, but be authentic. You don't need to fit a profile of somebody. You can fit the profile of you and build that.
And in fact, you're better off that way, right? I mean, you really want to be unique. You want to tell people how there's something that you can do better than anyone else. Maybe it's just one niche skill, but odds are there's someone out there looking for the particular thing that you offer. So long as you guys can connect, you can somehow communicate to that and reach them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And on the content note, write articles. You can post in a Substack, your own blog, be a guest poster, make video content. But it's talk at meetups. Talks are another good way to build credibility, both in a subject as well as building a network of people. Meetups typically are local events where I guess they kind of used to wait more locally until the pandemic, in which case most meetups are kind of national or global.
But that's an advantage as well, right? I mean, I think we found that because now it's much easier to connect with people across the country. It used to be that I would have to fly to New York City if I wanted to meet people from New York City, and now I can just get on a meetup. And they're not interested in where I live so much as what skills I have. And frankly, half the people on the meetup are probably people who have fled Manhattan anyway and are living out in Connecticut or something.
It's very true. On that note too, it's be open to remote
Right.
opportunities. You may have to travel and move, or I guess more likely nowadays, you could take remote positions.
Yep.
So that's the other thing. Like, your net needs to be cast very wide, especially in this economy, because
Yep.
the local market may not support um, either the type of work you're looking for or anything related to that. I know in Salt Lake, yeah, it's a tech hub, but the number of companies that I would see hiring data scientists, I just don't see as many hiring data scientists now. The ones that are
Right.
hiring are building out the success that they had prior to the pandemic, or building on projects that may have started seeing success during the pandemic, perhaps. But these in most cases these projects had traction. I think it's pretty rare that you're seeing sort of greenfield projects. So it's not to say they're not happening, but I just don't see it as much. Companies, like you say, are probably investing in things that are proven, that are going to provide ROI for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus right now is on survival, to be quite frank. It's like companies are thinking in terms of a bridge to get to the other side of whatever's going on right now. And especially where we don't really know when all of this is going to be over, not just the pandemic, but economic shocks that come out of the pandemic. It's really hard to know where we're going to be in 6 months. And so I think companies are kind of laying in stores. They want to have good cash reserves. They want to be in a really sound position so they can survive a tough market for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
So you
going to
want
be
to
a tough
be the
market.
unique talent. It
You
potentially
want to be
is.
the unique
Yeah.
talent. I think as well,
Yeah.
if you're looking for work, like understand the company that's trying to hire you and understand their goals. Like all too often, I
Yeah.
see new data people, especially they're enamored with the idea of, well, I can go in and I can start building models and like
Yep.
writing cool algorithms. And here's the reality: very few companies care about your ability to write algorithms. They do care about the results you're going to provide for them. And so if you can
Exactly.
communicate to that company that your position is going to provide, a good return on investment for them, this is both a good skill to develop for communicating to business stakeholders in general, that you understand the problem and you're providing a tangible solution that benefits them. But it also, in a hiring sense, it shows that you've done your homework on the prospective employer, and you understand how you could help them. This sets you, if you're able to do this, it sets you far apart from a lot of new data scientists, or data engineers who again are just too enamored with the technical aspects of what they could potentially be hired to do, and not so much what's in it for the company that's hiring them. Again, companies don't care, honestly, about
Yeah.
whatever it is technically you're bringing to the table. That's a means to an end. They may sort of care, but trust me, when it comes to a hiring decision, it's because you're going to help them make more money. It's as simple as
Well,
that. So
especially now
understand that.
there's a very pragmatic focus right now. We'll see how the VC numbers look in a couple of months, but I certainly get the sense that we're moving out of a phase of VCs dumping all kinds of money into these companies to try to create a shiny object. And companies now want to focus just on the bottom line for a while for
Mm-hmm.
the sake of survival. I mean, we saw the big, SoftBank pull back, and we still don't know how all of that is going to end up. They're obviously trying to sell ARM right now, so they're trying to shore up their finances. And I just get the sense that VCs aren't running around anymore and injecting massive amounts of capital into these startups and saying, find some cool, shiny thing that we can go sell to potential customers. And it moves back to what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with the reemergence of SQL, right? There's going to be a real focus on fundamental skills, on logical skills, on clean data, on getting a real clear, accurate picture of what's going on with the business and what's going on with the outside world.
For sure. And this is not to say that technical skills aren't important. I
Yeah,
think that we're just saying technical skills are table stakes. Like
right.
everybody you're competing with for a job has technical skills. This should be a given. So for you to, our advice is basically zig when other people zag. Like you have the entire group of people doing this over here, which is I'm going to, very incrementally improve my technical skills over here. You should continue to do this, but don't think that's going to get you hired,
Right.
because everyone else is doing the same thing, and it's basically a classic Red Queen race in Alice in Wonderland, where at a certain point you're just running harder and harder, faster and faster to stay in the same place. That is the technical aspect, because technology keeps changing. You have to stay on top of it. But I would definitely not recommend um, thinking that this is the only way you're going to get a job is simply to be a great technician. You have to be a great communicator, and you have to be good at, and people need to know what you're doing. So you need to be a good marketer. This is what's going to set you apart.
Well, I think fundamentally you can combine the two, right? So instead of running out and learning some technology that everyone else is focused on, find something maybe fairly unique that's useful, and then write about it, create videos, give talks, like show that you can not only learn, but that you can communicate, and show that instead of just doing tutorials, you can do research and learn things that are kind of on the edge, but also really useful.
It's like that talk we had with Freddie Drennan a few weeks ago where he showed his project Indexer. I thought that was really cool because it was a project that he was personally interested in and personally put a lot of time into building from ground up. And if I'm looking at hiring somebody, I'm going to ask what projects are you working on. If I see something like that, that's awesome. That shows that you're interested in solving a problem and figuring out how to solve it. And so that's cool. And so our advice too is like figure out a project or some sort of problem you want to solve.
And problem solving is the key, right? And solve a unique problem that someone hasn't solved before. Because if I'm looking to hire, those are the people I'm really looking for. Problem solving is much more a unique skill, even in the data and development world, than just like a rote set of skills. Like I've developed Java and Ruby on Rails. That's great, but that probably just means that you've gone through tutorials. Have you solved a problem with Ruby on Rails? Have you put in pull requests? Have you scraped some unique set of data, or uncovered some unique insights, or coupled systems in a unique way?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, there's a difference, I think, between like learning a package, for example, like maybe everyone, TensorFlow, you can go master TensorFlow, but that's no guarantee. It doesn't really signal anything except you learn TensorFlow. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good candidate for this position, right? But this, the stats are interesting. I mean, it's there's been mass unemployment. Thankfully in the tech sector, what is it? As of July, unemployment for the IT sector was 4.4%, I believe. So, relatively stable, all things considered. But job postings are down, especially in data. I think the overall data market is actually job postings are down more than the IT sector as a whole. So.
And the point is that we need to be ready for displacement, right? I think the watchword of the day is just uncertainty. It's not even that things are necessarily really bad yet. In many sectors they are, but don't get complacent, right? Be ready for things to change, and be ready to adjust, and be prepared for a lot of different possibilities, basically.
Sure. And the biggest asset you can build, though, is your reputation and your network.
Right.
I would say that your reputation is something that's going to take a lot of time to build, but the best time to start is today. And I would take steps to continue building that pile of reputational capital over time. That is your most valuable asset. Your second most valuable asset is going to be your network, because that's what's going to lead you into opportunities. And if you're a new person looking for work, what do you think is going to be more effective? If you apply to the same job posting that thousands of other people are applying to, or if you built your network and met people who could introduce you sort of through the back door into new opportunities. It goes without saying the best job opportunities are usually the ones that aren't advertised. By the time somebody has to advertise a job position, that means they haven't found the internal candidates to fill the position.
Or they're just doing it because it's a requirement of HR.
A requirement,
They know whom they're going to hire.
Yep.
Maybe there's an outside chance that they'll hire someone else, but it's about 90% that they're going to hire internally. So they advertise it, they interview 2 or 3 people, and then they hire the person they intended to hire.
Yeah, just to check the box. So
the goal is to be like that preferred candidate, to be a quasi kind of internal candidate, because you know lots of people and they're aware of your capabilities in the process. And I think the other argument we could make is that, say your company does fine and there's no displacement and your job is unaffected. Well, doing these things will not only improve your brand, but it's just, you're going to be better off in general, right? You're going to learn new skills. You're going to improve your ability to communicate, and you will become aware of new opportunities, and maybe you'll decide to move somewhere else or you could stay put if you want to, but you might, something new might come up that could be of interest to you just by doing this communication.
For sure, yeah. And it's the best opportunities are usually the ones that are provided by people who are willing to stake their reputation on you.
Yeah. Yep.
That goes a long ways. Conversely, you're not going to risk your reputation on somebody on a reference that might end up being, a failure. So,
right.
So yeah, I would build your network, because you just never know where these possibilities could come from. But I can tell you that in a situation like this, if you're a person that's new to the industry, it's just going to be really difficult to do what everybody else is doing. It's sort of like if you picture a club, like a popular nightclub, you have the line of people outside, and then you have maybe a VIP entrance, and you have the kitchen door in the back. So figure out how. Not that I know anything about working in nightclubs or anything, but find the kitchen door, get in through the back. There's no glory in being the person waiting in line in an economy like this when you're looking for work. You need to find other avenues to get in front of somebody, hiring manager, and get that job. This, like I said, your chances of finding a job just by being the 1,000th person waiting in line is basically zero. Your efforts are better spent, again, zigging while the people zag. Right now, everyone's responding to, job postings. I would say maybe do that, but don't spend a lot of your time doing that. Focus in other ways. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the job postings are useful for research, right? I mean, we do the same thing in the consulting biz. We just kind of try to see what the needs are out there, both at specific companies and just in general. And so go read job postings, but then go start asking around and talking to team leads and talking to people on teams at these different companies that are hiring, and find out what's actually happening and what their needs are.
And how would you meet these people?
Exactly.
You meet them on LinkedIn, you meet them at meetups.
Right.
You can email them, message them, and don't be afraid to get out there and talk to people.
So. Yeah, like don't be super spammy, but just kind of ask around and talk to people. The reality is that if someone reaches out to me and they're like, it's always these kind of body shops, right? These staffing firms that are reaching out like, oh, do you want to hire one of our Java devs? And for the most part, I just ignore those messages.
Same.
But if I get a message from a student saying, hey, I'm studying data science or data engineering or whatever, and I'm just kind of looking for career advice based on their experience, usually I respond to those things. And sometimes that turns into a really useful conversation, not just for them, but for me too. It's very mutually beneficial. So yeah, find ways to communicate authentically and again, just don't be spammy.
Don't be spammy. Don't be spammy.
That will get you ignored.
It's a fine line. Yeah, it's a fine line with marketing, because you want to talk all about yourself and how great you are. Avoid that in your communication. Put it in the other person's interest. Like, what's in it for them, right? Like, why should they care about talking to you? And also, the old saying is, when you go to a bank or a VC, don't ask for money, ask for advice. And the same is true here. People are flattered. People like to talk about themselves. I mean, look at Matt and I. But in all seriousness, we like to give advice. But if you come to us with a direct proposition, unless it's interesting, like Matt said, we tend to ignore it because it's too transactional at that point, right?
Yeah.
So,
but at the same time, I think we both want to help people out, but we're much more willing to help in terms of advice that could evolve into something else, rather than a product that you're trying to sell me. And if you are trying to sell me something, or you just want to get your name out there, do it with content instead of bombarding my inbox. Like, just write an interesting post that I'll stumble on and read, and then I might be interested in what you're up to.
Totally agree. Well, cool. I think that about covers it for now. Is there any other advice that we could give new people to the field or existing people in the field?
Maybe we've said it all for the moment. We'll have to think about if there's anything else next week.
Yeah, if there's anything else, we'll do a follow-up post. I'm sure there's stuff that we haven't thought of, but I mean, it basically covers it. But again, this is advice that you can start using now, early in your career. But you just keep building these blocks: reputation, network, content, marketing, brand. You got to think in terms of, like, you're a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're an employee, but you're still a business. You got to start treating yourself like one. So best of luck, and yeah, feel free to message Matt or me if you have questions. But hopefully, this video covers a lot of the advice that both Matt and I just tend to give on a weekly basis to people. So
Well, and
awesome.
unfortunately, I suspect we're going to be looping back to this theme. And I say unfortunately just because there might be some job losses. And I think this is going to be a constant theme in the tech sector for maybe the next year at least. So,
At least, yeah, exactly. So yeah, stay tuned. Well, thanks, Matt.
yeah,
We'll see you around. See you next Monday.
take care.
Bye.